Hello and welcome to the first live cast of VGST. We are thinking of calling it something cool given it's in a bar. It's usually video game small talk, and that still applies, but maybe video game sip and talk, video game sauce talk, slosh talk. We would appreciate shuts, talk. Slam talk.
Simon talk today. Or slamming. Sure.
We are never calling it Simon talk.
How are you today?
I'm with the crew from Ring of Pain. We have Belinda, Simon, and Jess. Introduce yourselves.
Hi, I'm Jess. I'm the producer for Ring of Pain. Currently been working on it for a little while with Simon, and previously worked on Sims Freeplay and Real Racing 3.
Hello, I'm Simon Boxer. I was an artist for 10 plus years, and now I'm an indie developer doing all the things. But yeah, we're growing into a studio now, so that's amazing.
I'm Belinda Coombs. I'm the music composer on Ring of Pain, and I love composing for horror, dark, ominous, tension music, so I love composing for this type of game. If you're into dark, not too creepy, but creepy games, then this is the kind of game for you. So
I actually find that super interesting because I have the kind of mind that cannot handle all kinds of horror. I'm fine when I watch a thing a lot of the time, but afterwards I'll get night terrors and nightmares. So I like things that are horror themed without giving my brain too much ammunition to kill me with it later.
I mean, it's a good game because it doesn't have jump scares, so it's not based on kind of adrenaline rushes or anything like that. It's more the artwork that it has the feel of being creepy, so it's very accessible for a lot of people that aren't into very serious horror games.
Definitely want it to be the blend of like terrifying and cute.
Yeah.
And yeah, a lot of people, like, when we're showing at conventions, will say, you know, what's wrong with you? Like, what is this stuff?
I get that question a lot too. So it's kind of like a puppy with a machine gun.
Yeah.
But terrifying.
Because, like, on the one hand, it's something very cute with something very dangerous, but what is he going to do with it?
That's right.
I would love it if each of you could describe the game for me, like, not too long, just each of you give your elevator pitch of what you believe the game to be.
Oh. Gee, should I start?
Simon has to go last.
Like, go last
you've
or
got to
first?
go. You've got to go last.
I'll go last. Okay. Just tell us what the game is.
So as the newest member at Ring of Pain, I would say that it's a dungeon crawler similar to Slay the Spire, with a different twist using cards as your monsters and items, and it's essentially playing on your deepest fears, turn by turn. That's how I'll describe it.
Yes, I think completely agree.
No, you're wrong.
But it's, I think also it's the Ring of Pain refers to the ring of cards that you have to work with, and it's about how you move around those cards to achieve your goals, which ultimately is to survive and to learn how to strategize against the cards. And as you get deeper into the game, the rings get bigger and there's more cards and they're harder to kill, and yeah, so it's really about also, you go through the game a number of times to try and work out what cards that you like. There's certain cards that you pick up and they hold certain attributes so that you can do certain special things to kill monsters and other things, and it's what strategies you use to get your way through the ring. Simon, your turn.
Yeah, the idea is learn and adapt. So the official pitch is like a blend of roguelike elements with dungeon crawler and card game. So it's like a dungeon crawler presented with cards, where cards are arranged in different formats, like mostly a ring format. As you interact with cards in the ring, the dungeon adjusts dynamically based on what you're doing. And the idea is it's made to be accessible, give you all the information you need to make decisions, which is the important part, not sit there doing maths. It just brings the encounters to you, and yeah, you can smash through it and have like a dynamic dungeon
Was
crawler.
the not sit there doing maths to jab at any other game in particular?
I don't mind maths, but this is just like the UX kind of like
It should
take
do
on
the
I
math
guess.
for you.
Yeah, all games kind of do the maths for you. I mean, coding is maths, so a lot of maths is done. We're just trying to do extra maths.
Extra math. Just like your homework back in school.
Well, we're doing your homework for you. Yeah.
The owl ate our homework.
Try and tell your teachers that we're doing your homework for you.
Yeah. And buy the game.
So today we do have a tight couch, and while we are all good friends and don't mind touching butts, what we're going to do now is separate into one-on-one conversations so that I can fall off the couch slightly less, and we'll be back in a few minutes with more VGST. And we are back with much space between our butts. It's so spacious. I've never had a butt have so much room.
I have. I'm a lonely boy.
Aww.
Not really.
Aww.
Don't feel sad for me.
I feel incredibly sad.
I don't need your sympathy.
You have it. So, one of the main things I want to talk to you about, which when I had my book open a second ago and then closed it like an idiot.
There are words in here.
Oh, that's right. I wanted to ask you why you made Ring of Pain a card game.
So originally, it was a solo project. And so I was still quite early in my learning to code commercially. Like, I hadn't done a commercial release as a programmer. And as mentioned earlier, I was originally a concept artist, moving into all sorts of art space. And so, yeah, turn-based game was like within scope. Like, it's really a scope kind of thing. So like playing in my specialty, which is illustration, concept art, not needing to make everything 3D, like basic animations, have cards, just simplifies the whole thing.
That makes a ton of sense. Because like when I've played it, the way cards sort of rotate at you, it could have been walking through a small dungeon. Like
Yeah.
it still could have played quite similarly. So I was wondering why the choice for cards, but just it makes sense, you know.
Scope. Also, yeah, mechanically, like it allows us to explore that kind of space, like the card game space. Yeah, like cards have two backs, shuffling, that kind of, there's like card inherent mechanics that
There's
we can
a
look at.
natural RNG to cards as well.
Yeah.
And so I think sometimes when people look at a card game, they're more likely to accept a random chance, perhaps, than they are just walking through a dungeon.
Yeah, and card games are awesome.
What's your favourite card game?
I played a lot of Hearthstone back in the day. But also, I play regular card games as well, like Gin Rummy.
Aw, I used to play way too much Magic.
Oh, right.
Back in high school, ran a club, we played Magic, did drafts, it was cool.
How do you feel about Hearthstone then? Are you...
It's fine.
Yep. Okay.
I feel like when I first started playing it, I liked it more than I do now. It went in a
probably
direction that was not hope adjacent.
Yeah, I quit when Goblins and Gnomes was released, because that was like crazy RNG.
I think for me, I quit when Catacombs...
Oh, okay.
Anyway,
Yeah, different
irrelevant.
game.
Tell us about your history as a concept artist.
So I started in the industry after, trying to get into the industry for a long time. Well, maybe not a long time, like a year of just solid sitting in my room, just making art. Finally landed that game job at a studio making a football game, like soccer football. And so I
You
just
say that with such disdain.
Well, I didn't know anything about soccer before starting this job, and I certainly didn't have any interest in it. But yeah, I went in there with like a portfolio of creatures, like, monsters and characters and that kind of thing, and then they sat me down and were like, okay, you're going to draw buildings for the next 2 years. So
Oof.
no, it was good though.
It's good. It's always good experience.
Yeah, but I mean, from there, just, you sort of wiggle your way around as an artist and try a bunch of different stuff.
Because I know you've had art in, CSGO,
Yeah.
Dota,
Yeah.
and Armello.
Yep. That's right. Yes, I was the first Armello artist to be hired, like outside their directors, so I did a bunch of their early...
And Armello's
Early work.
beautiful.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah, cheers.
And the stuff you did for Dota, my understanding was it was sort of like concept art that then got accepted by Valve?
Yeah, so Valve has Steam Workshop like curated submissions of user-generated content. You can make gun skins in Counter-Strike or like armor sets or wards or whatever. We got a ward into Dota. We got a little bat ward
That's so cute though.
spins around, and yeah, it was pretty cute. I think that's why it got in.
Did you find that working on those kind of projects like helped your portfolio or helped you to move into other things?
I actually haven't needed a portfolio since I did Steam Workshop because I'm just working for myself.
La-di-da.
I know. But yeah, in terms of like, I guess the root of that question, yeah, it definitely like taught me a lot. I learned a lot about the process, and then looking at what other people are doing in the workshop space. And
I guess would you recommend it to someone trying to do what you're doing?
For learning, yeah. For making money, no.
Yeah. I wouldn't recommend people do most of what I do for making money either. It's a bad move, and don't do it.
And at the same time, it's like it's so such a niche. Like making a Counter-Strike gun skin, you're just like skidding there UVs.
You can do it.
It's a design task. It's kind of like industrial design, so it refines that skill.
But also, like, making skins for those things is a whole job in some companies.
Yeah.
So it's not. I wouldn't say it's entirely worthless as a sense, because you
Oh,
can
no, I don't
prove
think it's
that you've
worthless.
done it for a game that already exists and is incredibly popular.
Yeah, actually, some of the Dota artists that live in Melbourne, I think there's 2 of them that now work at Tin Man Games on their Warhammer game. So
Yeah.
that's like direct correlation.
Yeah. They made a Dota and now they make a Warhammer.
That's right. Yep, they get paid a salary.
The other thing I wanted to talk to you about was the aphantasia aspect of the game, because
Oh,
I
yeah.
find this incredibly interesting. So if you're not aware, basically the concept that picturing something in your mind is not something that everyone can do. Some people can create incredibly vivid images that sort of appear in their brain. I'm someone who can, thanks Tram. Whereas other people don't. They don't really see anything. A friend of mine who's got it makes lists, and that's how she can describe things.
Yeah. So when I first heard about aphantasia, I shared this article, and a friend of mine, like a good friend of mine, and sort of kind of like a mentor, said this article made him realize that he had aphantasia. And then we had a big discussion about like how we visualize things in our own minds, and my visualization skills they're okay, but usually I'm just sort of like making order from chaos. Like I'm putting lines down and I'm seeing what comes out of it. I'm like putting like swatches of color down and turning it into something as I'm iterating. So the art style of Ring of Pain like reflects the idea of what I see when I
Your art
visualize.
style is like, it's kind of, sketchy is not the right word, but it's not like solid forms, I suppose. Like there's a chaoticness to it.
Yeah, it's sort of like raw and fuzzy, like detail coming in and out kind of was what I was,
No, I'd agree
imagining with like accents of color is sort of what I see.
and that kind of represents what you see in your mind's eye.
Yeah, and then my mind's eye, yeah. And then also like thinking, I mean, I made a mood board as well that had stuff like medical imagery and, like horror content from different media stuff. And so...
God, I love a good mood board.
Good mood board, yeah.
What kind of inspiration did you include in your mood board?
Not like specific games so much, just, yeah, all sorts of things like photography, like surrealist photography kind of things, like brain scans with like the dyes put in like medically processed imagery kind of thing.
Someone else want to sit here?
Yeah, cadavers, nah. I did real world research. I just
got some brains.
Just got some brains, just cut it up, yeah. Nah. Go all out. No, there's not enough time for that.
No, not enough time to create a physical mood board.
No. Maybe next project.
Maybe next project. I wanted to ask you about the lore, because my understanding is that there absolutely is lore in this game. And I played a little bit of some of the early builds, and you kind of get drip-fed bits via like poems,
Yeah.
and it feels like there's something kind of sinister or misleading to discover. But of course, as it's a roguelike, your chances of actually making it through to the end aren't the highest.
Mm-hmm.
So I guess, like, how deep is the lore?
So there is like a whole narrative behind it that's about sort of like growing as a character. So you start like frail and fragile, you grow to normalcy and then like power,
Normalcy.
ideally. Yes.
Yeah.
You start kind of broken, and in terms of what is sort of out there, the trailer kind of hints that you've sort of like made this place. It's like a reflection of your mind. You've projected your fears and delusions onto the world, and now you're sort of, learning through NPCs, as you say, with these like cryptic riddles.
Do you think one player has the chance to sort of work out the lore in any one run? Like,
No.
No.
Nah. And it's intentionally obscured. Like, I don't want it to be explicit.
You don't
I
want
it
anyone
be-
to understand the
No,
game.
it needs to be Dark Soulsy. Like, I really like the Dark Souls item lore kind of thing and their character lore, where people are making these theories and they're trying to piece together the bits. So I give sort of like the bones of a story.
You want people to have to extrapolate from data and never know if they're correct.
Yes.
Or
Well, I mean, broadly.
broadly.
They'll be broadly correct. I'll give them broadly what's going on.
Because each run is about 20 minutes at the moment.
Yeah, I'd say so. It's kind of like structurally Binding of Isaac-ish, where you have like set levels that you need to complete and extra levels, possibly. So like, yeah, like to get to sort of the branching part is maybe like 20 to 30 minutes. It depends how fast you are with your decision making.
I am super fast because I am speedy attack bonk,
Yeah, great.
as we
That's right.
as we learnt very quickly
yes,
with me.
yes, you got the bonk item.
I did. And I bonked some boys.
That's right. We tried to show Hope our item that transforms monsters if you hit them and they're still alive, but she had too much bonk power.
I was
and
so
just
powerful with my
killed everything
bonking
outright, so nothing got transformed.
that I couldn't do anything else.
Yeah, that's
It
right.
was totally fine though. It was nice to be that powerful, because that's what a sense that I got in the game is the first couple of playthroughs I could kind of tell that I didn't really understand how to play.
Yeah.
And then the more I play, the more I learn, and you get a real game sense for it. Like your knowledge increases, and that makes you better. And of course, you pick different items and things like that, so you've got that chance of being better at it as well. But it definitely feels like a game that you learn.
Yeah, and it needs to have that like overcoming failure and learning and insight. And for us as developers, we just need to make it challenging enough that you don't give up, and each learning is still fair.
Yeah.
But yes, there's a lot of failure.
Because it was little things like making the decision to sneak past someone or to attack them. In the beginning, I was like, I'll just attack everything because I'm big and strong, and they're just going to hurt me if I sneak past them anyway. But the more I played, the more I was like, oh, that's actually really risky, and I'm a big dummy. Let's do this a different way. And yeah, could definitely sense that I was getting better. And it was more that when I would die, I would understand the bad choice that I'd made and be
Great.
like, I need to think harder about that next time and be less of an idiot.
I'm glad this is recorded so I can use this as a testimonial.
Be less of an idiot. That's how you play Ring of Pain. The other thing that I really wanted to find out about was basically you've managed to get help from Film Vic,
Yeah.
and that's turned you into a one dude learning to code into many folks trying to make something together in
Yeah.
a beautiful conglomeration of souls.
That's right. Yeah, we are fortunate enough to have been blessed by the state funding, Film Victoria. Thank you very much, Film Victoria, if you're watching. It's a weekend, so they're definitely not watching. But
They might be.
maybe in the recording.
Hey, Film Vic. We
Hey,
know you're
Phil
out
Vic,
there.
Thank you for your funding. Appreciated. Yeah, it's really amazing that they supported us.
What was the process like?
I whipped out my InDesign skills and made a really pretty grant document, and then a prototype as well. Submitted our prototype, talked to them. You've got to talk to them as well, like during the process, to understand what they want. You can't just like cold apply and expect to get it. It's also
just
$500.
send them like a tissue with "money, please" written on it in the mail.
Here's my application.
Yeah.
It's 10 pages of tissue.
It'd work. No.
Probably.
So, did you? I guess if someone else was looking to try to get Film Vic funding, is there something you'd recommend?
I would recommend, I guess, talking to people that have had it, putting effort into your application, not just the text, like make it look nice, and don't ask for too much, because they're not likely to fund
You need to keep it within scope.
expensive. Yeah, you need to be smart about what you're doing. You need to be smart about like commercially what you're doing in terms of what you're making, but then also they want to fund people that are growing the industry, so it's not just the project. Like the project could be a stepping stone.
That makes sense. So they want to fund people that are probably going to stick around and make something new in the
That's
next.
right.
And
Absolutely.
build a studio, like you've done.
Yes. Yeah, I think this is basically what they're trying to do. Get people employed in Victoria.
Nice. Hey, Film Vic, please help me.
Time for your studio.
I'll make a studio of doing this.
Yeah.
Yay!
As a game.
As a game.
Just make it interactive.
Yeah.
Integrate Twitch chat, you're done.
The more likes I get, the more I'm winning.
Yeah.
Please like us. Thanks. So I know that some of the people you hired were people that were like helping you build on Discord and things like that. What did you look for in people you wanted to bring on the team, given that you aren't the biggest studio in the world, you don't have $1 million, you need to be smart about sort of who you can pay and who you can bring on?
Yeah, definitely. Originally, I was only looking for a composer, which is Belinda, that was on the couch just prior, and a sound person and sound implementer, which is Damien Shepherd. He's in London, so he's not here.
Yeah.
We
We could not afford to fly Damien out for this episode of VGST.
Yeah.
But maybe in the future.
And
Hey, Film Vic.
That's right, Film Vic. And so the considerations for that were just who's good. Damien was actually recommended by the people that did music for Darkest Dungeon.
Yep.
So I hit up them and were like, how much would you cost to do this music? And they're way too famous now, so too much. But they recommended Damien. And then Belinda was found through an agency. So a few people pitched music. Belinda's was the best music, so Belinda got the job.
Belinda makes the best music.
Yeah.
That's your box quote, Belinda.
Yeah, so I was just looking for good content.
Just good content.
Yeah. But I mean, you alluded to Tom, who's the programmer at the moment, that came on sort of organically. So when I first was testing on Discord, one of the people in our Discord channel mentioned their partner Tom was into like Unity pretty severely, and I was talking about doing post-processing, and we also had like a bug where the game crashed when you quit it.
Oh, I remember that bug. It's one of those
Yes.
bugs where you're like, do I really care about this? And I'm like, yeah, probably.
Kind of, yeah. Yeah, just forces
When I
people
quit
to
the
stay
game,
in the
the game quits.
Not for this
It
game.
didn't- yeah.
The game just stays there.
Yeah, come on, play some more.
Yeah, that's
just,
right.
Just do it. Just
So-
one more. Just one more ring.
Just look at it.
Just one more.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So he came on and offered to look at the crash bug. He took a look at the crash bug. I said, also I've got some budget for programming, so he was talking about building a test tool. He did that, and then he was just kind of like, I just want to keep working on this, so I just kept paying him. And he kept working on it, which is actually great, because like as a solo, I think some solo developers that is, can be really hesitant to sort of like
Open it up.
delegate work.
Yeah.
And I was definitely hesitant at first to delegate things that I felt like I could do, but other people can do it way better.
Yeah, and like sometimes it frees you up to work on something else as well.
Totally.
So like even if you could potentially, you know, code a thing the same capable as someone else, like if you've got that time to work on other aspects, because obviously, I mean, you're kind of the guy who's conceived most of it, right? This is pretty much your baby.
Yeah, I mean, I've creatively directed it.
It's a really weird,
and still
twisted
do.
baby, but
Yeah.
it's yours. And
It's my baby.
It's your baby.
It's our baby now, but you know.
But you know, it means that you know you can have your fingers in a lot of the pies.
Yeah, and yeah, like you're saying, it just being able to delegate stuff that other people can do is really helpful, and then I'll just do the art, which is something that I probably need to, you know, guide another artist to do.
So like, how many more blue boys are we gonna get?
Blue boys, infinite probably.
Because
Just
I kept losing to the blue boys.
the blue boys. That's called Void. The little spoiler. Not
Oh.
really a spoiler, but you know, no one's gonna know that because it's not in the game. But it's called Void.
What is your favorite enemy in the game?
I quite like the owl actually, which originally was an enemy, but then people
I was
liked
gonna say, is that a spoiler?
people liked the owl, so
People
it's now
liked
your
the owl
like
so much that you made it the
I
friend.
made it the yeah, your mother basically. Not actually your mother, but it's like your motherly figure.
Because in the game, there's never any confirmation that I'm human.
It's true. It could be your mother.
I could be an owl that wears pants
Yeah,
and
an armor.
a hat. Okay, well, what's your favorite weapon then?
Oh, that's a
'Cause-
tough one. I
'cause-
quite like the early there's an early game weapon that's really strong, and it means you can clear everything, which is like a halberd. I quite like the halberd.
I got
just
the
for
halberd in
convenience.
one of my runs, I think.
Yeah.
And
It's a common item.
it did mean that I was able to sort of clear out as many enemies as possible, which made me feel like I was actually completing it instead of just being a coward and running on.
Yeah.
And then obviously from completing the enemies, I was able to collect more souls and then unlock better things when I got to the chests. But because my halberd was so like steadfast and with me, when I got to the chests and it offered me a new weapon, I was like, I don't know.
There's plenty of stuff that's better than the halberd, but I just like it because it's reliable.
It really did feel, it felt reliable. Yeah, that's kind of cool that that you felt it was one way, and me, the player, also felt
Oh, that's
it
cool.
was one
Yeah.
way. I quite like the bonk stick.
The bonk stick, yes.
Because-
the staff. It's called the transformer, I think.
Yeah, but I mean only if it can transform anything. But I did manage to get a different playthrough later on where I was able to transform things, and
Oh, yeah.
I liked that element of randomness. Like, should I attack this? Is it going to get worse? Like, or am I okay? And then, you know, there was also the gamble that I'm going to attack this big thing and it's going to turn into something slightly less threatening.
Yeah, there's a mix of transforming items. Some like will evolve stuff, some will devolve it, some will just turn it into a frog.
I don't think I've seen a frog one yet.
Oh, okay.
Sad for me.
The iconic frog
The
that
iconic
appears
frog.
in one place and the trailer.
And the trailer, like, it's such a big deal, and I still haven't seen this frog in the game, even though it basically, it's. I mean, I guess Owl is sort of your mascot for the game.
Yeah, it's kind of like the brand.
Yeah.
The creepy big bird, cracked
The
out big
creepy
bird
big-
as
It's just Big
As
Bird
I've been
who
told.
hasn't had any sleep.
yeah.
That's how I look at it. Because, like, who could sleep in such a creepy place?
That's right.
Not you.
Not
Maybe
with the
you?
owl around.
Not with the... What are you saying about the owl?
Oh,
You heard it here first, folks.
could be a spoiler.
Don't sleep
Who
with the
knows?
owl around.
Who knows?
Is there anything else that you would like to say?
We are on the Steam. We are on the socials at Ring of Pain. Yeah, keep watching. We also have a Discord, which is, you know, discord.gg/Ring of Pain. So we are around. We are doing stuff, and the question that everyone asks is when will it come out? And by mid next year, we are aiming to have early access going. So you'll be able to try it out then.
I believe in you.
Thank you.
We will be right back soon with someone else from Ring of Pain
Yeah.
talking to us about something else.
Team.
Go team. And welcome back to VGST. We are here with Ring of Pain. We are talking to Jess, who does amazing
Belinda.
work. Sorry. You know something? I actually did this in my head, and I was like, "This is Belinda, and that's Jess." And I spent the whole minute before we started going, and I think somewhere along the lines I went the wrong way.
That's fine, so long as you don't ask me any producer questions.
So
that's
basically, we're
fine.
talking to the producer of Ring of Pain, and we're going to find out everything about how to be a serious producer. No, we're not.
Coming up next.
So, what I wanted to ask about first is your previous work before coming on board with Ring of Pain.
I would say that I am early in my career in terms of games. I spent a lot of time working for a lot of music libraries, writing music for music libraries. So games was somewhat early. I got into doing a little bit of sound effects for Harvest Hands, which is more of a farming simulator. I'm doing some music for, there's a guy that's doing a full modification of Command and Conquer for Tiberian Wars, so I'm doing a couple of tracks for him, which is really cool. What else have I done? There's other things I've done. But Ring of Pain is really my first main game that I'm getting into, and I was lucky enough to get involved in working with Simon because I met a guy called Fabian who works for the Otherworld agency, who specialises in being an agent for people for the audio side of games, and Simon reached out to Fabian looking for a composer, and Fabian thought it would be a really good game for me to work on
Because of your creepiness?
because I love the dark stuff, and yeah, it's worked out well.
Why did you decide to start looking into game work as opposed to...
Oh, I'm a massive gamer. When I was younger, I played so many games, and I just didn't know where the game scene was. Everything else seems to be so connected, film and TV and everything. It seems to be all off in one side, but then the games industry seems to be quite separate. So I would have loved to have got involved in games, when I was young, but I just didn't know that it existed. I didn't know that there was a scene
When I
in
was
Melbourne.
young?
Yeah.
What?
If we could all go back, I'm sure. Yeah.
Yes, no, definitely. It is incredibly niche. It is like any industry. There's a lot of who you know, and it's not necessarily in a gatekeeping way. It's just the circles are so tight, and that getting into them can be hard from all aspects of game development. And a part of it is not as large a pool as a lot of other aspects are, like movies. Like I think it's a lot potentially easier and a lot more well known and well trodden ground.
Yeah, I think film and TV have been around for a lot longer and are a lot more established, so it's easier to get into. But generally in the game scene, a lot of gamers and people building games, they're developers, they're engineers, they're coders, so they behave differently. I think it's a different network, so
Absolutely.
it's very much about meeting people and making relationships and making sure that you're passionate about the project that you're working on. Not that that's not for film and other things, but I just found that that's probably why it's separate, because it's a different type of interest in the people that are involved in that industry.
And you also have to build sound around what someone might do, not what's certainly happening, which is probably a different mindset to have from your perspective as well.
In terms of game music compared to TV and film.
Correct.
Yeah. So with games, because it's interactive and it's not linear, you don't know what... a game is typically defined by what the player is doing. So as the player is moving around a game, the music and anything that's interactive with the player is changing as the player is interacting with items within a game. So music is one of those things. Whereas a film is linear. So a good example is a horror film. So in a horror film, you can set up when the jump scare is going to be. So if there's a creature that's going to jump out, you can build the music up to when that's going to happen. But in a game, that could be at different times when you play the game.
Yeah.
And you have to be able to create the music dynamically so that jump scare can happen depending on what the player's doing.
And still build suspense.
And still build suspense, exactly.
That sounds so difficult.
I think it's just about you're allowed to be clever. I think that's what's appealing about games, that it's not, you can go about it so many different ways. You could do it in a cliche way, or you could try things and you can create systems and see if they work. Because at the end of the day, whatever medium you're working for, it depends on the feel of the people experiencing that medium, and if it works, then it works. Yeah.
I wanted to ask about, you're really into the creepy stuff. What's some of your favorite inspirations?
Well, I'm a big fan of Outlast and Outlast 2, which which are horror.
Boy, are they?
And the composer for that was Samuel Leflemme. He's a French composer. I'm not sure how to pronounce his last name. I love the Resident Evil franchise. Soma. A lot of games, I think, especially with horror. I think why I love horror is because the audio in horror, when you think about when a person is in fear, our bodies go into a response system. So we use our senses to tell us what's going on, and one of those senses is sound. So when you're playing a horror game, you rely really heavily on the audio response that you're receiving. So that's why, for me, I mean, the horror games are the ultimate, because the audio is beautiful, because it has to be, because the player is usually receiving so much information from the audio, from what's happening with the audio. And that's where you can be really clever in what you're doing to try and emulate what is horror, because you can also get into the psychology of what is fear, and often what you can't see is more scary than what you can, and that's where audio comes into it, to tell someone that there's something happening overhead or around the way, but you can't see them, but the audio tells you that information.
Because some of the best horror games allude to the danger rather than highlight it outright. Because as soon as you've seen the monster, they're less scary.
Exactly.
Once you know what they look like.
Yeah.
And I find that there's also, like you said, there's a psychology to it. Like, humans are deeply responsive to dissonance and chords, and like even just listening to that kind of music can freak us out without anything else to affect us. So in a sense, music and in a fear can do a lot of the heavy lifting.
Yeah.
Even if a game isn't that scary, if the music on top of it's terrifying,
Yep.
I'm gonna have a hard time.
Yeah. Well, I mean, there's that example that goes around, which is the film Psycho, that a lot of people have taken that scene where the main actress is in the car driving, and they've changed the music to show you the impact that music has. So you've got the typical Psycho music, which tells you that bad things are going to happen, but then people have switched it to happy kind of go-lucky music. And
Spoiler
she
alert.
looks like she's... it's at the start of the film, it's fine. And they've switched the music to make it look like it's a happy-go-lucky film, and it's amazing what music does for mediums. And
Because even something really scary, if there's like yakety sax or something's playing in the background, it can almost become funny to us instead of terrifying, because our brain doesn't necessarily see it as danger anymore.
Yeah.
Then we can see through it and see it as film, or see it as an act that someone's playing out.
Yeah, but I think that's where you can get clever with. You can play with the visuals. A lot of games will use, for example, they'll be playing a happy jazz track in the background, but the visuals on the screen are telling you that something else is happening, and it's that juxtaposition that plays on the psychology of psychologically distorted and all the other things.
Yeah, because then it becomes more disturbed.
Yeah.
But also you feel like you're separate from it.
Yeah.
Because it wouldn't happen like that.
Yeah.
Like, I expect that if I am ever murdered by some sort of horrible being, that I'm going to hear like some dissonant chords and some chains in the background, and like a violin's going nuts.
Yeah.
I don't know, like that's what's happening.
That's
I'm not
definitely what's going to happen.
Yeah. Someone's just in the background like, holy shit, can you believe
like
So you were telling me earlier that you came up with a bunch of techniques, and I want to hear about all of them.
Yeah, so I suppose to come up with the idea of what music I was going to create for the game, I really was looking at the visuals of the game. Obviously Simon is an artist, and
He says he is, but
the verdict's still out. So I really wanted the music to play on the visuals of the game and to really enhance the visuals. I also was really conscious that because it's more of a thinking game, I wanted to stay out of the way of a person thinking, because sometimes themes can be too much.
there's also some in-game music, like for games like StarCraft and stuff like that. They're designed to help you concentrate
Okay.
rather than distract you. So even though they may sound a certain way, they're actually literally designed so that you're focused more on the game. And they're very careful about what they put into it, because they don't want people suddenly being like, what was that?
Yeah. You don't want to, I mean, you've got to be conscious of, you don't want to be bigger than the game. It's got to fit the game. You don't want it to make the player disinterested. You don't want them to turn the music off. So you've got to be really conscious of a bunch of things, and that's when I think you've got to come down to what you feel, and you've got to play the game and play some music and goes, what do I feel? Am I feeling okay when I play the music? Play the game, and it's this kind of constant juggle that you're doing between, I'm feeling okay, but do other people feel this way as well when they play with the music? I don't know.
Because music does affect different people differently. I mean, I guess everything does though, so there's only so much accounting for that you can do.
Yeah, but I think also because you're creating it, you hear it differently, and because you hear it so much, sometimes you don't hear it for what it is anymore.
Yep.
And you might think it fits, but for somebody else listening to it, it doesn't work. Yeah.
And that's part of where briefs and things like that are probably very important.
Yeah.
And like talking to like your producer, or like how does that work for you as a sound person?
I suppose definitely speaking to whoever's involved in creating the game and the vision of the game. I mean, for Simon said that he didn't have a lot of ideas, but what I found was when I was having conversations with Simon, what I was trying to do was get inside his head of what he could see the game, what he wanted the players to feel. So while he didn't say what the arrangement was going to be, what the instruments to use were, the genre or anything like that, he just said he wants it dark, not horror, but not jump scares and everything else, but it's kind of dark. But then I spoke to him about other games that he was influenced by, what they made him feel, what he wanted someone to be feeling when they were playing the game. And I was really trying to, a lot of it, I was trying to get the vision, and I was trying to really get a good understanding of what he wanted, so that what I would create would be in line with that.
Do you...
And I suppose back to your other question of how I went about the music. So I decided that I wanted more, I felt that what fitted this style of game would be more kind of avant-garde and really textured music, rather than something that was really thematic. So I felt that I wanted to try a lot of different techniques and a lot of extended techniques on instruments and things. So I decided I'd just go and sample loads and loads of different sounds. So for a couple of days, I just recorded a whole bunch of different things, and I decided I wanted scraping sounds and groaning sounds and all these things. So I was in the shed, and I was grabbing all these things out of the shed, like metal poles and saws and things, and I was scraping things, and then on my guitar, I got a violin bow, and I was bowing the guitar and doing all sorts of things to try and get different sounds to kind of put them all together. And that's ultimately, for one of the areas, that's ultimately what I did. It's more kind of avant-garde and sound mass and things, which has a creepy vibe to it, but it's a lot of created and distorted sounds to match what the mood of the game was.
I don't know if there's anything creepier than knowing that music I already find creepy may involve a rusty old saw.
Now you know. Because how are you going to get those sounds without using those instruments?
I don't know. Any other way?
Butterflies don't make those sounds. No butterflies were harmed in the making of Ring of Pain.
Like there's butterflies somewhere that were tested and found wanting. Those poor insects. What do you think's the weirdest thing you've done to try to get a sound that you're happy to talk about?
I don't know that I think anything's that weird, because I think a lot of stuff's been done before. I think, trying stuff. I think what I'm fascinated about is how much the body can make. So what noises I can make myself.
Yeah.
There's games that I've created sound effects for, and we needed a pig, and I realised that I could do a really big pig sound.
You know what my
squealing.
next... You know,
I don't want to know what your next question
Come
is.
on. You do not have to, but I would love to hear a pig noise. Beautiful. Hold on. There we go. Now we've both done it, so it's less embarrassing. Slightly. Pig novice versus pig expert.
But I think your imagination, you're limited by your imagination, and I think for composers there is so much available to you in your house, in your room, in the instruments that you have, just playing with them in a different way. We spend thousands of dollars on virtual instruments and machines.
There's so
and
much software and equipment nowadays too.
And you want to get a really good sound, but it's also remembering to go back to basics, to, just taking a recorder.
Just suck it up and make a pig noise.
And and experiment, and it's just a little bit more time, but I think you come up with more interesting results and more creativity. Yeah.
I guess if everyone is also making noises with the same software and the same programs, they're probably getting similar noises.
They are.
And I would imagine that someone like yourself who's obviously very cluey and knows about this, you can probably hear it.
Yeah, I also work for a music library called InStyle Music, awesome library, and one of my jobs is that I review a lot of music.
Just a sneaky plug on our podcast.
But I review a lot of music, and what I find is exactly what you're saying, and what's really interesting is, with all the technology we have, with all the gear that we have, that everything weirdly sounds kind of homogenous.
Yeah.
And when someone does something just a little bit different, it really stands out and it's really interesting. So there is a lot to be said for get out and do stuff and just try and create sounds a little bit differently, because you're more likely to stand out. And in games really encourage dynamic music compared to...
Because otherwise it becomes kind of like the Wilhelm scream, right?
Yeah,
it's like, this is in everything.
And there's a lot of tracks that I listen to, and they've all got the same samples. And I know that pack that sample's from, or I know that virtual instrument.
Yeah.
And
these pedants with their samples.
But it pulls you out of the context. And so when you're playing a game, if there's sounds that it just sounds the same, it kind of, or it sounds that you've heard before, it pulls you out of the play of the game. You want to be... The whole purpose of a game is to be immersed.
Yep. And
so how, as a musician, can you help players be immersed in a game?
And anything that's recognizable can snap you out.
Exactly. Yep.
Yeah, that's really cool. So as a musician, I suppose, what kind of study do you have behind you?
I studied music composition at Box Hill Institute, and it was really good for theory. I guess
that's my other question. Like, how much do you find it's worthwhile? Because for what you do now.
I think it depends on the individual. I wanted theory. Previous to studying, I was playing around on my computer with sounds, and I could hear a lot of the music that I wanted to play, but I didn't know how to make it sound the way it was in my head. So I got a really good I looked at all the different courses that there were, and Box Hill was the one that was going to teach me what I wanted to know.
Yep.
But I also felt after I studied, I got into writing for music libraries, and that was really good, because as a composer, of course, depending what you want to do, but in general, what you need to be really good at audio production and composition and mastering, and you need to be able to do everything. So you need to be able to make sound that is ready to go. It can be licensed straight away, rather than necessarily relying on mixing engineers and other people.
Yeah.
Unless, depending on the products that you're going for. But generally, you need to be self-reliant. And so after studying composition, pitching for music libraries and trying to get into music libraries really helped with my music production skills. Just being able to mix something and make it sound good.
Sound it like
And
it's proper quality,
yeah,
like it's not
yeah.
someone at home in their
Yeah.
egg cartoned basement.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. Yeah, because the competition, there's so many people doing it. The entry level to composing now is really low. So there's so many people composing. The bar that you need to be at is really high. So you need to be good at what you do to be able to just to do stuff.
And you find that kind of having, I guess, that jack of all trades, not that you're not a master of anything, but that ability to flex and be able to produce something from start to finish is a benefit.
For me, it is, and also because horror really lends itself to a lot of sound design and processing sounds. For me, it is. I know that there's other people that they can do MIDI mock-ups and then they get it recorded by an orchestra.
Yep.
But that style
It's kind of a different...
It's a different thing.
Yeah.
If you're trying to produce things and push them out to TV, and especially games, because you need a game that has a budget to be able to afford all these things, and especially getting going, the budgets are smaller, so you need to be able to... How are you going to do that?
Yeah.
Mm.
Yeah, I mean, are there any cost-saving methods that you've found for yourself?
The ways to do it would be to either hook up with another mixing engineer so that you're both working together, or do some sort of deal with someone. But ultimately, the reality is everything you need to know is on the internet and it's pretty much available for free. It's just about searching for it, spending the time.
Yeah.
A lot of people won't spend the time into mastering their craft, and like music's the same as anything. You have to practice being creative, you have to practice your art, and you have to spend time at it, and it takes time. So if you put the time in, you can achieve the results, and you just have to be obsessed about music, and and I think that helps.
Be unhealthily obsessed with your job. The best advice.
In a good way.
Yeah, what's your favourite part of Ring of Pain so far?
I think it was probably a couple of things. One of them was that Simon was really open with what I was allowed to do creatively. He didn't really have a lot of restrictions, probably none. And so I think, well, he just said, make it dark. He kind of said these are the kind of, he was quite general about it. And I think ultimately that allowed me to be free in what I wanted to do.
Find a developer who doesn't know what they want.
Don't all flood Simon at once.
Calling him out while he's not on camera.
But I think it allowed me to kind of experiment and try stuff and really go for things and trust my gut with ideas. And I really valued, being trusted as what I do, that this is your profession and you should kind of know in a way what you want to do. And the swamp theme, there were for the early access there'll be 3 areas, but the swamp theme was the one that I decided to go a bit different on, and I didn't know how well that was going to be received. And that's the one where I was in the shed creating sounds and doing all this sort of stuff. And I was really worried that they would turn around and go, what is this? Like, this isn't music.
You're like, it's a rusty saw and it's coming for you.
And it was well received, and I think ultimately it's about, trust your gut. I've played games enough in my life to know what kind of works and to really trust yourself in what you want to do, and it's okay to be a bit bold and try things and do what you think is right for a game.
Did the swamp theme end up becoming your favourite?
I think so, yeah. I enjoyed just the darkness of the game. It really solidified for me to pursue games that are dark and more horror and everything. But when I've had public performances and done presentations of the game, the swamp theme, a lot of people have really responded to that. So it was it was weird to be like, oh, that was the one that I was most worried about. That people are responding to that most about. So yeah.
I wonder if that's another case of your unique sounds. Like working for people because they're not calling back to anything or
I think
specifically.
so.
Yeah. No, that's really interesting. Was there anything else you wanted to talk about?
I suppose just the game's really easily accessible. It's I wasn't someone who played a lot of card games before, and it was a really easy game to play, and it's a really clever game. And if it sounds like it's your sort of thing, it's a really easy to get into and play.
Easy to play, but hard to beat.
And that's the point.
Cool. Well, thank you so much for chatting with me.
No,
we are
thanks, Hope.
here at Bar SK with VGST talking to the crew from Ring of Pain, and we'll be back. And we are back at Bar SK with VGST talks to the crew from Ring of Pain. I am here with the real Jess and not that filthy imposter we had earlier where I accidentally called someone by the wrong name, and I'm still going to have dreams about that when I try to sleep at night. How are you feeling?
Fantastic. We do look very similar though, me and Belinda.
No, I'm just really stupid. So you're the producer.
I am.
How'd you get here?
How'd I get here? Well, I found Simon through Twitter.
Twitter is a big thing for game dev jobs and stuff.
Yeah, it really is. Like lots more than Sumia and all the other sites. So
no matter how much I want to delete the hell site, I have to stay on.
Yeah.
Because it's so relevant.
So yeah, I met Simon, applied for the role, but previously I'd been working at Fire Monkeys out in Docklands. So yeah, just the EA studio, so working on Sims Free Play and also Real Racing 3.
Yep.
So for me, I've kind of come from, I guess, 150 people studio, and now we are a small independent studio, so I am wandering around the room looking for all my people.
You're like, hey you, talk to me.
Yeah, I need to tell you about something, right?
Yeah, I need to tell like 10 of you about something. Wait, there's not 10 of you? Like,
correct.
do you prefer it? Or is it just different?
I think it's just different, and I think this gives us and affords us the opportunity to kind of set up an independent studio, and I guess really design the studio the way that we want to do that. So we're really about, I guess, equality and trust. As Belinda was talking earlier, I guess it's one of our drivers that we are all adults, and that we value each other's time and positions. And that we trust each other to do our work, and we have that respect for each other.
That sounds beautiful, and like some sort of weird dream that I once had when I believed the world could be a good place.
Well, that's what we're trying. So I guess we're called Twice Different for a reason.
Yep.
And so I'm just going through the processes now of, I guess, writing up our studio handbook and things, and so that's really been on my mind around, I guess, the type of organisation that we want to be, the type of studio that we want to be. We want to all be trusted professionals and be treated like trusted independent professionals in our roles. I know it sounds like a dream, but it's really coming true right now.
You're making dreams into reality.
We are. One day at a time.
So, where were you before you came into game dev?
So before I got into game dev, I was doing project management, just consulting throughout a number of different industries, but also I worked for about 10 years as a project manager in a bank. And so I guess for me they were very different things.
Do you find that much of it's transferred?
I find a lot of it's transferable.
Soft skills?
Yeah, so the project management skills will always be transferable. And a lot of, I guess, the financial budgeting and understanding coming from working in a bank.
Probably having someone like you on a small project where you do have a small budget sounds like it'd be really beneficial.
Yeah, so I guess that's one of the things that I've kind of been brought on is to help operationally, and also reduce some of, I guess, the critical stress on Simon. So Simon, having, I guess, developed the game for a year and a half by himself, has been the dual and the primal. So for me, I get to kind of come in now and take some of those operational pieces away and allow Simon and the rest of the team to kind of focus on what their core skills are and where they excel, so that I can remove any roadblocks out of the way and kind of get us to where we need to be.
How would you describe a day in your job?
Day in my job is very Excel or spreadsheet heavy. It'll go from, I guess, looking at timelines, It could be going through a document to find out the status, checking in with our team and doing stand-ups. I could also be talking to various stakeholders, looking at contracting work, or whether that be purely operational. So setting up, for example, public liability insurance for the business, or getting privacy policies signed off by our lawyers. So I'm a bit of a catch-all.
Yeah, because I understand that, like, producer for different places can mean different things.
Definitely.
But also, I think it's a very misunderstood position in a lot of jobs. People just kind of assume that you stand there and you're like, do the thing. You should be working on the thing. But there can be so much more to it that people don't necessarily see because it's incredibly behind the scenes.
Yeah, very much so.
Like,
and
an artist, for example, they draw something, you see it in the game.
yeah,
Whereas, like, for you, even though you've done all these things, you don't necessarily see it directly reflected like that.
no. And I guess that's where I see myself as kind of the support staff. The support staff in a way that keeps the lights on and keeps the business running, but also removes all of those roadblocks so that Simon and Belinda and those people who have amazing creative talent can actually get in the flow and use that talent and apply that to the game in the best possible way.
But if they didn't have someone like you, like, I understand what you're saying, but I wouldn't discount it so heavily with your language.
Yeah. I mean, support staff.
Because it's incredibly important.
I like to think of myself as a team cheerleader.
Yeah, no. No. Not correct.
But also, part of the team.
Absolutely part of the team.
Yeah.
This concept that producers are not developers is something that frustrates the bejesus out of me.
Yep.
Because you are integral into getting a game
Agreed.
made and shipped and all those other things. And, like, it also frustrates me when people think of soft skills, for example, as not as important as, like, someone who can code, because it doesn't matter how much you can code if you can't communicate with other people.
Yeah.
Like, you're just going to be in your basement making a game by yourself that no one ever plays,
Yeah. And
or you're going to be Notch,
that's the...
who also never made anything of value, because we all know that Minecraft was made by Hatsune Miku.
I just got schooled.
Facts.
But yeah, so I think, the producer role has definitely, it's always different, I guess, with any role and within any company. So you can kind of have, I guess, a bit of a taste and a bit of a choice as to what type of producer you want to be. There are a lot of, I guess, creative producers who are very much responsible for the story, for the vision.
I really like this idea that there's, like, different classes of producers.
I guess it's just different types.
Yeah. No, like, it's like one of you is a mage and the other one...
Yeah. One is an Excel fighter.
Look, Excel is not my favorite thing.
No.
No. How does it even work? Nobody knows.
I know, you just punch numbers in.
And hope that they align correctly.
Yeah, hope it's the best. You
Yeah.
get someone to double check.
It totally works. Trust us.
Yeah.
What would you recommend for other people who are looking to be producers? Like, what's knowledge that you feel like you have that has helped you?
Look, I think understanding the different project management methodologies and why you would use them. I guess, agile versus waterfall versus lean development.
Wow, describe one of those for me.
Okay, so agile development, I guess, is more reiterative development that you are working on. Say, I want to make a box, but then you say, okay, so I'm adding this other requirement that the box has to be red. And so then we might iteratively make that red. Then we might say the box needs to be able to be opened. So then we'll add that on top of and continually develop.
Yep.
Whereas your waterfall type methodology is you would design all of it up front and then you would go into implementation mode.
So you'd have kind of like a brief that was fully set, and then you would try to make something that adhered to that.
Yeah, definitely. So I guess, and lean is kind of, I guess, a little bit of an in-between of those two.
Waterfall into an agility track.
Yes. So I guess the ability to be able to utilize those different methodologies with a game and within game development has been really interesting to me, because coming from a very conservative background in banking, you were not afforded a lot of choice or swiftness in your decision making.
Yeah, I can imagine something like that, especially as such an old career, I guess. Like, we've had banks for a very long time as a society because we suck. No offense to banking professionals, ex or otherwise. Whereas, game development, it's still, it's not brand new or anything, but compared to a lot of other careers, it's still in its infancy. and so we're still kind of working out how to do things.
Yeah, and I think that's what really makes it an interesting space as well, is even from a project management perspective, there aren't these years and years of kind of methodologies that are being handed down to us, is that I guess we can kind of create our own based on the team that we have.
Yeah.
And for me, that's always worked the best in terms of how you're managing a project.
Because I would wager that you work slightly differently now than you did at Fire Monkeys.
Yes, definitely.
Just a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, just the pure number of people you need to talk to, the amount of reporting and overheads. We're a much leaner shop, so with 3 people, I guess, I'm doing the majority of those operational pieces, but there isn't so much of it because you are a smaller organisation. So we get to define our own processes and be pioneers.
So not only are you defining your workplace and what kind of ethos you want to have, but you're also defining the processes that you want your workplace to work within.
Yes.
It feels like really like you're creating something from scratch.
We definitely are. So I guess that's kind of what we want to do with Twice Different as a studio, is kind of be creating this independent studio that, we do have things that we stand for in terms of wanting to respect each other as, independent artists. And
I hate that you're like, yeah, we want to do this thing that probably everywhere should do by default, but it's actually a big deal that we want to do this.
Yeah, well, I mean, for me, it's something that I'm passionate about, particularly
No, absolutely.
With, I guess the approach of people management that we have, or we're all a fairly relatively, small team, so we don't have much of a structure, but just being able to, I guess, be there at the start and create those, that space has been really, really interesting and important to me, because it's one of the most important things in my team is, I guess, those people skills and making sure that you are there supporting your team and removing all those roadblocks.
What do you think, can you give me an example of one specific thing that you remember doing and you were like, I am the producer?
Look, I have to say, getting public liability insurance for the business felt pretty serious.
You were adulting?
Oh, yeah, I was pretty serious.
Maximum professional.
No, I mean, look, it was just amazing being able to, even pick our studio. So, all together as a team, we kind of looked at locations of what we were going to consider for a studio, and being able to kind of do that as a team and get everybody's ideas on board and kind of make sure that it was going to work for everybody in terms of a space and a creative space.
That really is the benefit. Like, you literally building everything from scratch.
Yeah.
Including choosing a location that'll work well for everyone.
Correct.
And you can afford.
Yeah.
Because everyone would love to be in the city, but that doesn't always happen.
Yeah.
Money.
Well, I mean, we didn't want to be in the city at all. We actually specifically chose to be out here in the northern suburbs.
No, fair enough. What drew you to the northern suburbs?
I guess we kind of wanted to be a little bit opposite to the arcades. So there's definitely a great space in South Melbourne.
Yeah.
We were kind of looking.
You just
at
wanted to offer something somewhere else
in the north, and how can we kind of look to maybe champion something on the other side of the city.
Diversify Melbourne into more game studios.
Even just more game spaces where people or small independent studios can come together and network, learn from each other, and just have another hub would be amazing.
As a producer, what was getting ready for PAX like?
Busy?
Because I'd wager that some of the more paperworky aspects of that, which there are a lot of, might have fallen to you?
Yeah, and also making sure that our booth was fireproof with all of our sticks.
Because of course I was coming past with a torch every other hour.
So we had to make sure that we didn't burn things down. But yes, yeah, it was certainly stressful and busy, and the weekend was amazing.
You recommend it?
But I think with three of us on, we were quite tired by the end of PAX.
Yeah, no, PAX is not a cakewalk.
But look, we got some really amazing feedback about the game. Got some people coming through and playing it, and got to really talk to those people about what they were excited to see in a roguelike card game. And what sort of things we could maybe improve on, or get some suggestions from players.
Would you say that PAX is worth the hassle?
I would say definitely to get your game out there, get it seen, get it in front of people. Look, we certainly had a lot of interest and people signing up on.
No shade on PAX, by the way, just that it is a lot of work.
It is. It's a lot of work, and I think we had a little bit of support being part of the indie showcase. So a lot of the stuff was kind of we had a little bit of a hand up there, being chosen to be represented as one of those games. But yeah, it's certainly a long weekend, and you're going to lose your voice probably from talking to as many people as you do. But it's amazing to be out there. There's nothing like being on the floor and having watching people interact.
Actually play your game.
Yeah, and watching how they play and their styles of play.
Because not everyone's a quick bonk like me.
No, and I've got to say I'm terrible at the game. So I had a 5-year-old kid who came up and showed me off at PAX. He was amazing.
Kids are always going to do that though. Like it's always like the next generation just twigs with these things a little bit faster, and you're always like, I've been doing this for 30 years.
He's making me feel real old.
And it means nothing. So, was there anything else that you wanted to talk about?
No, I'm good.
No?
Yep.
You sure?
Yeah.
No? The producer says we're done. It's curtains.
Could be question time.
Could be question time. We were hoping that anyone who's watching live or otherwise anyone in the bar, which there totally are other people in the bar, by the way, not just us mostly, kind of. If anyone has any questions, we would love to field them with the whole team and get people's opinions on things. Or if you have questions for anyone in particular, just make note of that as well. And we'll be back in a few minutes here at Bar SK. And we're back with VGST at Bar SK talking to Twice Different, the crew from Ring of Pain, and we have your questions. Some of them are good and others are less good. But that's on you, really. And I'm going to ask them all anyway. So, from James Swimbanks, he wants to know why a card game, and we did kind of ask that during our little chat, but go over it again for him.
Why a card game? Yeah, so partly because I love card games, and partly for scope reasons. And scope reasons include to facilitate like a turn-based game that's single player that I could make as a solo developer, which is what I was originally. So that was kind of my original answer.
So basically, like, you were talking before about how you didn't have to make like a 3D art that way. You can stick to doing like things like 2D, and it just makes it a lot easier to sort of manage. Yeah,
cutting down art scope, being able to play to my strengths, which is like illustration. And then also I wanted to explore the mechanics of cards, like, you know, two-sided shuffling, this kind of thing.
TV's Jack Krinjamin asked, wanted to know specifically from Belinda what it's like to work in such a niche industry.
Well, it's great. If you love games, it makes a lot of sense to work in the games industry. I think like anything, if you are passionate about what it is that you're involved in, that's going to come through. So if you love film, or if you love games, or, you know, whatever it is, then I think ultimately your dedication to something and your interest in it is going to come through. So yeah,
that makes sense. If you work in an industry that you appreciate, you're probably going to be less bored. You're going to actually care about what you do. You're not going to go home and look at that bar at the top of the house and think, can that hold a noose? You know, less like...
I'm just going to make a point about this as well. I think it's really important for people to have agency in their work, and in the indie scene, like, you can afford to give people a lot of agency in the team. Like, you know, you joked earlier, and I'm gonna comment on this, but I'm a developer with I don't know what I want in music, but it's more like I'm hiring someone that I trust, and I have an idea of what is good.
You hire people that you trust to do their part of the job.
Yeah, and being able to give them the agency, I think, is really important, because I've always wanted creative freedom with like, my artwork.
When Jess and I were talking earlier, she was mentioning that part of the ethos of the company is to trust each individual with their job.
Yeah, definitely. And I think you've got to do that.
Everyone's an adult, and we believe in your skill, and that's why you're here. So please make the best thing.
Yes.
I think just also because maybe the question was a little bit bigger than that, but ultimately whatever industry you're in, whether it's the game industry or anything else that you're in, I treat myself very much as a business, and I have to, I work on contracts, so I am very aware of running a business, not just as an artist. So I think if you're interested in working in this area, you very much have to understand how to run like a business, how do you brand yourself, how do you communicate, potentially niche, all those sorts of things. So it's not anything that I'm doing is not necessarily particular to a niche area. It's just business in general as a composer, but a developer would probably have a different experience.
I also have a thought on that. So, yeah, with that...
This is why he was only allowed on for one segment.
Yeah. Oh, one speech at a time. Running a business, limitation is really important. So giving people the creative freedom means they can also self-limit their work. So I'll say to Belinda, you know, we want this music, make it as good as you can or want within, you know, the budget.
Yeah, no, that's absolutely. So like as a freelance writer, for instance, I am often kind of doing that same sort of thing where I'm working out whether or not the piece and what I've pitched and how much I'm going to get paid for it and how much time I need to put into it is all worthwhile, because it's often not, and I do it anyway because I'm an idiot. And I think learning, you know, the limits on that is incredibly smart and important as someone in that space. We have a question from me, and I want to know if all of you, I want each of you to answer, could talk to any person in history, who would it be and what would you say?
Oh my, no, you need to start. Someone with ideas needs to start.
Oh, wow.
Anyone in history?
You said you wanted to think on your feet.
Yeah, look at us. We're doing amazing.
You're welcome.
Well, my first answer would be one of my dead relatives. I said it off mic, but my first answer would be one of my dead relatives, but that's a really sad answer.
Do you just want to say hi?
I just want to chat, you know, find out what they're about a bit
Catch
more.
up, find out what the afterlife
Yeah.
is, if it exists at all. Did they just pop back into existence? They've got no memory of
Yeah.
anything. Sorry, mate, you're dead.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. Find it all out.
I think choosing someone that you've got some separation with might be smart for this. Don't end up crying.
I was going to think more.
I'd really like to know if Robin Hood is a real person. I'd
Don't-
like to meet the real Robin Hood.
Maybe the person who was inspired.
No, the real one.
I'm pretty sure he was just a character.
What?
Like, I'm 90% sure. Well, as I'm crushing dreams, you got anything?
Well, because you were saying there needs to be some amount of separation, because if it was anybody, I'd probably choose someone that was alive because it's relative to today. But if we're talking about separation, because I think if you're speaking to someone in the past that's not relative to today, maybe. But I loved the work of Chopin, and I thought his stuff was really interesting. So if I'm going to go with a composer, I'd pick Chopin.
Chopin's really nice. Yeah, good
And
choice.
he plays piano, and piano is a beautiful instrument. So.
Unlike all those other instruments, especially saxophones, which suck and we hate them.
It's funny you pick saxophone. I play saxophone.
So do I. So do
I play
I.
the ugly instrument. Oh, you play. Well, when you're learning, it's definitely ugly, as many instruments are.
Nothing like a beginner sax player. Nothing quite like it.
It's a lot more ugly than if you're learning to play the piano. At least you can't, you're pressing buttons on a piano. Whereas
Honk.
I think I just offended a lot of piano players. But
They just push buttons. No skill
they
there.
just press buttons.
I feel like I should move on before I die. Louis from Bar SK fame wanted to know, why would you make an interactive, like why did you feel the need to make something interactive rather than just make some art? Like why do people need to play it?
Oh, you go.
I think, I speak for myself. We fell in love with playing games when we were young. It's the feeling that what games gave me when I was young are these worlds. They create these amazing little worlds that you can escape into, and a game is art. So, but they're just in a different form than, I think, traditional art. But I still see them as art, and I think we're always just trying to recreate those emotions so that other people can experience them as well.
I really like in games being able to get insight, like that feeling of insight, which you can't get from, just looking at a piece of art, and it's sort of less, you don't so much get it from like passive media. The insight you get from kind of like being trickled information that you're opting into yourself, and then making connections about story or whatever it is, gameplay mechanics, sort of under your own steam and at your own pace. And yeah, I think that's really powerful, which interactive medium, like, it's got it.
Yeah, I agree. I think, the interaction and the immersion in playing and putting yourself in that space, and I guess surrendering yourself to the audio, the visual, the storytelling, the sound, the music. It gives you so much more than a piece of paper, a printed art piece, or even, I guess, something that you're potentially experiencing, or an installation. I think it allows you to create your own meaning, and allows you to create your own stories within that space as well. So particularly with Ring of Pain, and with the lore that we have, and it allows you to kind of play with those ideas, but also play with them at your own pace, and be moving through them the way that you want to move through them, as opposed to, I guess, the way that we've necessarily designed or forced you to go through those.
Yeah, and you also get a different experience, like, each time.
If I can just add, I think we all are artists in our own right, and we create art on the side as well while we're doing interactive art. So it's kind of, it's all mixed.
So it's a lot about giving people the opportunity to delve as far or as little as they want in and experience that art piece for themselves.
Also giving meaning to the art that you're making, just speaking on Belinda's point. Like, it's a multimedia, project. It's got writing, it's got art,
it's got
digital
everything.
art, it's got music, it's got, all the things.
Yeah. I wanted to say that apparently, according to chat, Roger Godbird is Robin Hood's real name. So I knew that it was definitely a story because he's existed in several different places and times. So there's been iterations of him, which is why I was like, oh, no, it's real.
It's totally real.
Also, when I first read Godbird, I read it as Godbeard, and I was like, no one has a name that cool. So I was like, no, it's not. And then I read it again.
God
like,
is in my beard.
Maybe it's true.
It's our next game, Godbeard.
Godbeard. You heard it here first.
I will take 10% royalties, Kay, thanks. And lastly, Aaron wanted to know, since we asked when we were talking to Simon, I think we asked about your favourite creature. We wanted to know what everyone's favourite creature was.
I've got a couple. I think they're all. I think a lot of the creatures are really awesome because I love all the artwork that Simon's done. But there's a green blob creature with a couple of heads, and when you kill it, it splits into two, and then you have to kill both of them. And I think that's really clever.
The Siamese slime.
And then the other one is the one that when you're a couple of cards away, it starts throwing blobs at you.
Oh, was that yours?
Oh.
No, I just hate that guy.
Oh, but it's really beautiful, and then you get closer to it, and it's kind of this blobby. It's probably, I like the blobby creatures, and then it's kind of this multicolored creature it's kind of all kind of weird and wobbling, and I think it's really cool. What's that one called, Simon?
That one is called the Spitter, or Bloaty. It's basically regurgitating its stomach acid. It's like a really bloated thing. It's super malnourished, and it's really, and it's shooting stomach acid at you.
Adorable, right?
None of the monsters are in a particularly good place. Creatures, I should say. I call them creatures. Not monsters.
They're all your babies. My favourite's Our Friend.
Oh yes, our friend. What's your favourite?
Well, I really hate the spitty guys. And it's just because they hurt me before I can even retaliate. And that goes against a lot of my... just the way I react to things in life. Like, if I get hurt, I like to sort of drag someone down with me. I'm the kind of person who stubs their toe and then looks at who they can kill in retaliation for it, kind of thing. Like, it's really not good for me to be being hurt by something at a distance. Because even if it's not the smart thing, I'm gonna hunt you down, and then I go after him, and then I lose the game.
That is the smart thing.
I felt like it was. But as for my favorite, I've never really fought them because they've always been too strong for me. But there's the guy with the armor, like the knight sort of looking dude that's got like the helmet on.
What color is it?
Oh, gee.
The helmet guy with the armor.
And then like usually you hit him and he turns into something else.
Does it have final art?
The switcher.
Is it the switcher?
Oh, the spiky one?
Maybe.
Red spiky one? Does
Maybe.
it have final art or is it placeholder
It may
art?
not, but I just like it because it always felt so intimidating for me that I never wanted to go up against it.
Yeah, it's probably this. Yeah, it's probably the spike. I think I've called it Spike Bud.
Spike Bud.
Its unofficial name in the file. Spike Bud.
Spike Bud for President 2020.
Yeah, probably do a good job.
Yeah.
Considering the option.
Yeah.
Anyway, we're not doing that right now.
No.
Thank you very much for hanging out with me today on the couch.
Thank you.
Thank you.
At Bar SK. Thank you to Bar SK. That was incredibly lovely.
Okay.
Yeah! And thanks to everyone who watched and hung out with us in the chat, or if you're watching this later, thank you for watching it or downloading it or listening to it, and you can hopefully find more content like this on VGST in the near future. I am Hope Corrigan. I'm here with Belinda, Jess and Simon, and thank you.
Thank you.
Bye!